For the session today, we have a personality who is experienced in the field of tax litigation, statutory compliance and reporting, tax advisory and controversy management. With a career span of over 9 years in transfer pricing and corporate taxation, the feathers to his crown are numerous. He is none other than Mr. Sahil Sharma, Managing Associate at BMR Legal. Sir is an advocate and also holds a degree in Chartered Accountancy. Sir has appeared before various tax forums in the country, including the tax tribunals and high courts. Sir, we are truly elated to have you with us. Today we also have with us Ms. Sana Javed, Lecturer of Taxation Law, Jindal Global Law School. I welcome you, ma'am. Without further ado, I now request Gaurav sir to kindly enlighten us and walk us through his article, Faceless Assessment Scheme Mired in Litigation. I request all the participants to kindly post their questions in the chat box if there are any, and we'll take them at the end of the session.
Thanks, Priya, for that introduction. I'd like to thank the Center for Comparative and International Taxation for inviting me for this discussion on the Faceless Assessment Scheme. So, we'll divide this discussion into two parts. Firstly, I'll take you through the nuances of the Faceless Assessment Scheme and the recent controversy surrounding the scheme. My endeavor here will be to give you insights into how the scheme works practically, the challenges that are faced in the scheme, the surrounding controversies, and the way forward on that. And then we can open up the floor to any questions that we have. So, in the present times, the role of technology is not just confined to altering businesses and operating models. Uh, the taxation landscape as such has also evolved in the last decade, with the government utilizing state-of-the-art technology into their tax administration system. So if I were to just point out on a few timelines, last decade, what all steps the government has taken in adoption of this technology. So for instance, in 2015, that is the first year in which email communication for tax assessments was launched on a pilot basis. In the year 2016, e-filing appeals before the first appellate authority, which is the CIT appeal, took place. And in 2019, the budget proposed the e-assessment scheme. Later on, in the budget of 2020, this e-assessment scheme was transformed into a faceless assessment scheme. Now, why is this faceless assessment scheme so important? Is that a measure of this extent is unprecedented. There is no other country that follows a faceless scheme when it comes to tax assessments. Now, so on 13th August 2020, when this scheme was launched, it was launched under the aegis of the Transparent Taxation Platform. Now, when this platform was launched by the government, the intent was twofold. The intent was to ease compliance, honor the honest, and reduce or eliminate any kind of harassment that the taxpayers would face. Now, given the circumstances, since this scheme was very unique in its nature, it was but natural for it to encounter certain challenges. And we will talk about those challenges. But before that, I would just like to spend some time on explaining the structure of the scheme. So the scheme here is divided into two parts. There is the National Faceless Assessment Center at the apex. Now, this is the center or the authority that actually communicates with the taxpayer. Below the National Faceless Assessment Center is the subordinate center, which is known as the Regional Faceless Assessment Center. Now, it is the Regional Faceless Assessment Center that actually undertakes the assessment. One of the most important and unique features about this scheme is the specialized team-based audit. So what I mean by a specialized team-based audit is that there are various units in the RFAC. There is an assessment unit, there is a technical unit, there is a review unit, there is a verification unit. Now here is where the scheme is very different from the erstwhile schemes. So in the erstwhile schemes, Traditionally speaking, what would happen is that there would be a single assessing officer, and once this case is picked up for scrutiny, the client would be issued a notice with a questionnaire requiring him to fulfill those details. Now, basis the response to those questionnaire, the tax officer, in case he was not in agreement with the tax liability determined or disclosed in the income tax return, he would issue a show cause notice. And accordingly, then, after providing the client an opportunity of being heard and filing written submissions, he would pass the order. Now, in the new faceless assessment scheme, what happens is, firstly, once the businessman or the taxpayer gets a notice, he or she is not aware of the jurisdiction of the officer. So it's a dynamic jurisdiction. So if I am here sitting in Delhi and I am subject to scrutiny assessment, I could get a notice from an officer sitting in Chennai, and at the same time the identity of the officer would not be disclosed to me. So the reason for bringing about this was to curb any undesirable practices. So that is the reason that they came up with a dynamic jurisdiction. So I would not be privy to the tax officer who is undertaking my assessment, and therefore any undesirable practices or chances of harassment would reduce. Secondly, these various specialized units would come together in order to perform the audit. So here is one of the biggest advantages, which is a team-based audit. So if tomorrow I would get a notice from the assessment unit, and then suppose I am to provide them with my financials, balance sheet, P&L, or my income tax return, which are the basic requirements of any assessment. It is on the basis of these documents that a taxpayer's assessment journey begins. So that particular assessment unit will then again have specialized units such as a verification unit, which would be a specialist at looking and scrutinizing my financials, my items of income, expenditure, any clarifications that would be required. Or there would be a verification unit in case there is any valuation of the business or any asset that I'm required to produce. Then the verification unit would have the expertise to examine and scrutinize to the extent that I'm presenting the correct position. So it is through this endeavor of the government that they want to bring about a sea change, wherein there is a paradigm shift from a high pitch assessment to a qualitative assessment. So in the past, the government has faced some scrutiny on account of high-pitched assessments being undertaken for taxpayers, and the high courts have heavily come down on those officers on saying that at the end of the day, you have to ascertain the correct tax liability of an individual, and just because there are certain targets that a tax officer has, it cannot lead in any arbitrary adjustments. So the scheme, this team-based audit system, what it does is it is the objective is again to repose the faith of the taxpayer in the income tax department through elimination of human interface. So the scheme at the very ground level, what it's trying to do is change a culture wherein how we perceive the tax administration is not as an adversary, but is as an enabler, where the entire exercise of tax assessment should be for the taxpayer and the tax officer to come together to determine, assess the correct tax liability. So I think that is one of the very important points of this scheme. And then also with this scheme, there is a lot of utilization of technology driven processes such as artificial intelligence, data mining, etc. So when I talk about technology driven processes, what I mean is that the department will be using algorithms in order to be able to determine what taxpayers need to be assessed. So there is a risk-based management strategy that is in place. Also, in the present arena, there is a lot of exchange of information that is happening. For instance, there is a MOU signed with SEBI and an MOU signed with CBIC. So in case, for instance, a taxpayer is dealing in the stock market and there is certain information that the tax department needs to have access to, they will no longer require the taxpayer to file that information. It is through the exchange that the information will become available to them. And how this also benefits the taxpayer is that traditionally what was seen is that a questionnaire was a standard questionnaire. So if I am a manufacturing business, I would be issued a standard questionnaire akin to a questionnaire for a service provider. So many times, a lot of the information that they would ask would not be relevant. So now through this faceless assessment scheme, and they have come up with a standard operating procedure for this, saying and assuring the taxpayer that there will not be any standard questionnaires. There will be customized questionnaires, which means that at the very start of the assessment process itself, the tax officer will be aware of the nature of operations that you're carrying out. And how that helps is that it kind of, it acts as a check and balance to ensure that there are no roving inquiries done. That information which is necessary for the assessment is the information that is being asked. So, and another objective of this faceless assessment scheme is to, as I said, to pass qualitative assessments. So at times what is observed is that if the tax officer passes an assessment, on certain occasions that assessment does not hold ground in a court of law. So if we were to look at statistics of ITAT, High Court and Supreme Court, there is an overwhelming tendency of matters that are there in litigation. So through the faceless assessment scheme, what the government wants to ensure is that there is a qualitative assessment. Once there is a qualitative assessment, the need for me to litigate at higher tax levels is taken away. And in terms of protracted litigation, it's actually not even the government that actually gains from it, because there is so much utilization of resources that go into these cases and stalling of assessments that take place, which in a way also kind of serves as a impediment in mobilization of tax revenues. And in today's time, the government understands that how mobilization of tax revenue is important. And the best way to achieve that is where the taxpayer and the administration, come into an agreement. So for example, if I were to give you a recent measure of the government was the Vivad Se Vishwas scheme, which said that we will waive off your penalty and your interest if the taxpayer is forthcoming and he pays taxes. And the Vivad Se Vishwas scheme was an absolute success. Similarly, the raising of the threshold limits by the revenue by the government for revenue to file appeals was also raised. So all these measures reflect or highlight the direction that the government wants to take, which is to bring about a consensus when it comes to tax assessments. Now, having said that, the faceless assessment scheme in its present form also has certain hurdles that are there, which I would like to call niggling problems, because it is but obvious that if there is a new scheme which comes in and no other country follows it, so there are no best practices available to you. So one of the major challenges here before the government and the tax administration is the uncertainty on the provision for a personal hearing. So the scheme is introduced under section 144B, and there is a subsection 7, clause 7, which says that the taxpayer may make a request to the principal commissioner or director commissioner for an opportunity of being heard, and the principal commissioner or uh, director may grant a personal hearing subject to certain conditions. So the emphasis here is on the word may grant. Now what this does firstly is that it brings in an element of discretion, you know. Now the point here is that how does one decide that what is a case which is worthy of a personal hearing and which is a case where we can do away with personal hearing? Also, in the present scheme of the section, they say that there will be conditions that will be notified for a personal hearing, right? But till date, there are no conditions that have been notified. So the scheme came into effect in the month of August, and what was observed was, practically speaking, there were assessments that were done through the faceless scheme, and the taxpayers during the course of the assessment had asked for a personal hearing, but in majority or all of the cases that personal hearing was denied. Now the assessment orders are passed. So in this case, what the taxpayers took recourse to was the writ jurisdiction of the High Court. And why did they go into the writ jurisdiction is because they challenged the scheme as being violative of the principles of natural justice, in particular the principle of audi artem partem rule, which is embedded in Article 14 of our Constitution. So the taxpayers said that this is a clear violation of their legal right of, of having a fair and impartial hearing. So there was a spate of writ petitions that were filed in both in various different high courts, especially in the Bombay and the Delhi High Court. And in all particular matters, what has happened is that the High Court has stayed these matters. So there's an interim stay. So prima facie, the High Court is in agreement with the plea of the taxpayer. So the High Court, acknowledges the fact that they need to look at whether there is a violation of a legal right. And the matters are presently stayed. So in those cases also what has happened is that the scheme now in a way is mired in litigation because the scheme is not moving forward, right? When these cases are there which are stalled, it kind of raises that question on the scheme. So presently the fate of the scheme is actually hanging in the balance because it will depend on what kind of an interpretation does the High Court take. In fact, in one interesting judgment of the Delhi High Court, in the case of Sanjay Agarwal, the High Court has also kind of laid down a principle in a way and said that the use of the word in the provision is may grant a hearing, but at the same time, when the taxpayer requests for a hearing, it is incumbent upon the tax administration to grant a hearing. So that also kind of points in the direction of what kind of a view will the High Court be taking here. So uh, that is one of the big challenges that is there, and in terms of way forward, what can be done here are two things. Ideally, in my own, and this is my personal opinion, CBDT could perhaps come up with an amendment to the provision. They have CBDT under section 119 has the power to amend the provision. So they can amend the provision in order to ensure that the principle of natural justice is not violated. Otherwise, what it does is that it puts the scheme, it puts a very big question mark on the scheme on the issue of constitutional validity. Also, at the same time, if we were to leave aside the constitutional validity argument for a minute, there is all on 13th August 2020, there was a taxpayer charter also that was introduced by the government. Now, this taxpayer charter again is a reinforcement of the taxpayer rights, and this is another significant development that has taken place in the recent times, wherein the government says that we recognize your rights and we want to codify it in the Income Tax Act, right? So in the charter, there are a lot of rights that are there, but I just wanted to point out on a couple of relevant ones. So like the taxpayer has the right to a fair and just system, to a fair and reasonable treatment, the right to be treated honest, and the right to representation. Now, in case the faceless assessment scheme continues in its present state, it raises also a big question as to whether the faceless assessment scheme will be in coherence with the taxpayer charter, wherein these rights have been codified in the charter. So any sort of divergence of the assessment scheme with the charter will just also create an atmosphere of litigation and uncertainty around it. So I think it's in the best interest of everyone that the CBDT come up with, either it could come up with a amendment to the provision section 144, or they could come up with a notification wherein they could notify that upon a request being made by the taxpayer, a hearing shall be accorded. Another thing that I wanted to talk about is that there is this the faceless assessment or the faceless scheme is not just confined to assessments right now. The first appellate authority is also being made faceless. So there is again that question which lingers on is whether a personal hearing will be accorded to the taxpayer or not. So practically speaking, if I were to give you an example, is that under the faceless scheme, we have the income tax e-portal. Now the hearings happen on this particular portal. So the taxpayer logs in, you receive a notice. You receive a notice for filing your detailed written submissions before the CIT appeal. So over there you go and you make a submission of whatever pleadings you have. Now presently there is no facility on the portal, and this is my personal experience, for me to request for a personal hearing, right? So what happens in that particular case? Again, the challenge is that it creates an atmosphere of uncertainty for the taxpayer. Now, being a appellate authority, the CIT appeal is a quasi-judicial authority. So it has all the powers that a judicial court would have. Now, given that particular kind of power to kind of circumvent or limit the power of CIT appeal on a personal hearing is something again probably that the government will need to look into. And we perceive that if it continues in its present state, then even after the CIT appeal orders, the taxpayers may probably, be looking at filing writs before High Court on similar grounds of principles of natural justice. So another important point here is that suppose the CIT at the CIT appeal levels also, the personal hearing provision is optional or not granted, right? So after a CIT appeal order, I would approach the ITAT in case I'm not in agreement with any adjustment being made. Now ITAT is the last or the final fact-finding authority, right? So at the if it is only at the ITAT level that I will be granted a personal hearing, where my facts have traveled to authorities, and for the taxpayer to only have a hearing at the ITAT level, again raises a question as to on the efficacy of the scheme. So I believe that having said that, the scheme no doubt is noble. It has more advantages than disadvantages. I think the government is doing great by eliminating the concept of jurisdiction, bringing in a concept of dynamic jurisdiction, making it team-based audit. The government has been very proactive in signing MOUs with different departments and agencies for ease of exchange of information. There are detailed SOPs that the officers have to follow for the faceless assessment scheme. And I believe that only if that once this particular hurdle of the provision for a personal hearing is taken care of, I think the scheme can really kind of achieve its purported objective of making faceless assessment scheme painless, seamless, and faceless. Thank you. So we can now open up the floor to any questions.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, sir, for such an articulate and detailed brief. It was indeed an insightful session, and I'm sure it was a great learning experience for all of us who are attending the webinar today. So I'll be now taking up the questions. I request all the participants to kindly post their questions in the chat box if they haven't already posted it. So the first question that we have today is that the term mired is being used fittingly in the title of the article, considering the litigation emerging from the income tax faceless assessment scheme. In addition to faceless assessments, even the first appeals are now proposed to be conducted in a faceless manner. Was there a better alternative that a government could have adopted to achieve the purported objective of a transparent tax administration?
So Supriya, that's a really good question. So I mean, you know what we could perhaps have done differently is rather than going the full hog way with a faceless assessment and a faceless CIT appeal, we could have possibly first started with the faceless assessment scheme, and not in a very full-fledged manner, but in a phased manner, wherein for a select group of taxpayers for one particular assessment year, you kind of make it faceless, and then practically you look into the scheme and learn from experiences of the taxpayers in case there are any glitches or any issues, and then have a full-fledged rollout of the faceless scheme. Because what's important here is that tax uh, the tax assessment that is done by the tax administration is the first instance of litigation or tax determination that takes place for taxpayer. So if at the very ground level, orders passed are qualitative, orders passed are just, orders passed are taking into consideration judicial precedents, then for the taxpayer, the need to challenge or go to higher authorities reduces. So I think if the scheme were to come in a phased manner and only at the assessment level for the first year, I think that would have been a desirable approach.
Yes, sir. I think that is a very good alternative. So the next question that we have is the faceless assessment scheme, which claims to enhance transparency and efficiency in the assessment procedure, has also brought certain hurdles to the taxpayers, such as the lack of adequate opportunity of being heard. This hampers the natural justice principle. Would an amendment to the provision increase the burden of the authorities again?
Not at all. In fact, if I would say it would reduce the burden because, see, in an assessment process, there is a lot of communication, correspondence to and fro that happens. A taxpayer takes a certain position, he explains his business. There are queries that the tax officer puts forward, right? So if you were to actually accord a personal hearing, it would in fact ease the burden on the tax officers as well, because they would be in a better position to be able to understand the case of the taxpayer. So I feel that if there is a personal hearing is granted, I think it will serve as a good measure for not only the taxpayers but also the tax officers.
Thank you, sir, for the answer. The next question that we have is, so what recourse does the taxpayers have if they are not given the opportunity of fair hearing?
Right. So, Supriya, I think in this, what is most important is, and taxpayers and practitioners have to be aware of is that when they are when either they are representing their clients in a faceless assessment scheme is that they have to officially make a request for a personal hearing. That is the cause of action. So it's only when they make a request for a personal hearing and in case it is denied, then they have that opportunity to go before the High Court in a writ jurisdiction and say that, this is a violation of my legal right. So I think making that request for a personal hearing is really important.
Yes, sir. So the next question that we have is, so what should be the ideal system or the best way forward scenario for appeals if in case the faceless assessment continues in its current form?
So I think the best case scenario for appeals would be that at the CIT appeal level, you keep it faceless. You don't disclose the identity of the officer, but either through a video conference or video telephony, you actually, provide that opportunity of a hearing to the taxpayer. Interestingly, also, the faceless scheme is not confined to the CIT appeal level. In the budget, there are also talks about making the ITAT, the tribunal faceless, and that is something which the legal community at large is debating right now. To have a tribunal which is faceless is something which is absolutely unheard of. And the reason for that is that traditionally, before when a matter is there in the tribunal, there is an arguing counsel and there is a counsel for the revenue. And of course, you have an accountant and a judicial member. So when you're presenting your case, you're explaining you're not only explaining your case to the members, but at the same time, the revenue has a point to put forward to which you have to give a rebuttal, and vice versa. So if you make the entire scheme faceless, in a way, it takes away from that traditional system which the tribunals follow, and that so that is a debate, and we can probably have another webinar for that as well. So what I feel right now is that the government should seriously consider reassessing things and probably firstly just make the faceless assessment scheme of bring in the provision for a personal hearing and do the same for CIT appeal. In fact, in one of the matters where the faceless assessment scheme has been challenged, so the ASG has said on record, so the matter was getting adjourned, and the ASG said this on record that CBDT is actually reconsidering or modifying the scheme. So I think if CBDT does that, it'll be a useful measure. What remains to be seen is whether the right of a hearing will be absolute right, wherein you say that I have made a request, I make a request for a hearing and I'm granted unconditionally. Or again, whether you put in conditions that, under these circumstances, only I'm going to grant you a hearing. So that remains to be seen.
Yes, sir. Thank you for the answer. So the next question is, the faceless assessment scheme has been introduced in light of the steps undertaken by the government towards digitalization of tax administration and dispute resolution. Recently, the taxpayers have been facing various technical issues on the income tax e-filing portal. With this background, what areas should CBDT focus on to ensure smooth flow of faceless assessments in terms of its online portal?
So Supriya, I think with the faceless scheme, the biggest asset that you have is the IT infrastructure, right? And it can also turn out to actually be your biggest limitation as well. So practically speaking, right now in cases, what we've observed is that on the portal, there have been certain issues faced wherein we file submissions but not been able to receive acknowledgements. In the recent past, the site was being revamped, was not operational. There were issues in uploading attachments. Only one attachment could be uploaded at a time, and the file size was limited to 10 MB and all of that. So I think the government can really just needs to focus more on making the infrastructure support really robust so that these kind of glitches are taken care of. Because see, the reason for digitization is just one, in my opinion, is convenience. So now instead of me having to go to the tax office or wait in lines for my turn, I can log in, I can look at the notice, I can make my submissions, etc. So for that, the entire interface needs to be seamless.
Yes, sir. So the last question that we have today is the statistics show that the success rate of faceless assessments is pretty high at the rate of 43%. So being part of the ground reality of the implementation of the scheme, could you please share your experiences about the same? And has the faceless assessment scheme been able to achieve its objectives of making the assessments faceless, painless, and seamless?
Um, uh, like in terms of my personal experience, yes, I think the kind of orders which we are seeing are qualitative orders. There is a trend of going away from high-pitched assessments, to case precedents, case laws, and all. Everything is being given importance. So, with the team-based audit mechanism, it's not just one person who's doing your assessment. It is a team of 4 to 5 people. So it's people coming in with their expertise collectively together as a unit and doing that. So of course, yes, the quality of the orders has increased, but as I said that the pain that the taxpayers are facing on account of the personal hearing needs to be tackled.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much for the answer. Uh, I think and I'm sure that this has brought much more clarity on the topic for all of us. So I take this opportunity to thank Mr. Sahil Sharma, sir, and express my kind gratitude on behalf of CCIT for accepting our invitation to address this session. We strongly look forward to having with you again, sir. And without failing to mention, I would also like to thank all the participants who has joined this session, without whom this webinar would not have been successful. And on behalf of CCIT, I assure you that we will continue to strive for knowledge, and in furtherance of the same, we are having other upcoming webinars and to ameliorate everyone's taxation knowledge and understanding. We look forward to your continued participation and support. With that, I would like to bring this session to a close. Thank you.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure. Thanks.
It's our pleasure.